Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the BS Zone, where I delve into the deep, dark depths of the internet to discover and uncover some of the worst articles known to man and ones that are absolutely, utterly, 100% bullshit. And today I have found one that it's been online for a while now. It's been online since October 11th. But this is an article that is just unbelievably bad. It's has every earmark of a bullshit article, of an article that's worthy of being discussed on the BS Zone. I wasn't really planning on doing another episode of this series, so soon. Uh, this is a spur of a moment thing. BS Zone stuff doesn't happen unless it's something that I think is like really worth discussing. The other one I did, I don't know. I think I was just kind of in a rush to maybe do something different, so I did one on the Night of the Living Dead case. Where the guy was convicted of abuse years later for forcing his kid to watch Night of the Living Dead. So I don't know. Like, that was a little bit. I don't think there was enough there for a full BS Zone episode, but I did it anyway. This one, on the other hand, there is plenty of content. There's plenty of bullshit to go around. So let's get started, shall we? This is an article by Abigail McCoy, and it's from the Glamour.com website. Yes, the magazine that you see at newsstands and maybe your girlfriend might get in the mail that tells them about, might give them some tests about how well their sex life is going, or talk about fashion and makeup and so on. Well, this one is an article that is completely tone deaf. I don't even know if I even want to call it an article. It's an article in name only, because this is just a lot of bitching and whining. This could be called a whinge article or a cringe article, because it is cringe-worthy. It is cringe-inducing. So the title of this, and this is from the entertainment section on their website, it's called "Do People Actually Enjoy Watching Horror Movies?" And it's in the movies section by Abigail McCoy. And the first picture you see is a picture of the twins from The Shining, which apparently, uh, if you read this article, this hit piece on horror films, this woman who's writing about horror movies and discrediting the entire genre has not even seen that movie. So she has The Shining, a picture from The Shining as an example here, and she hasn't even seen the film. So right off the bat, excuse me, just thinking about this fucking article is making me want to gag. Um, she hasn't even seen this film. And the title alone is a red flag. Do people actually enjoy watching horror movies? Yeah, they do. Why are you asking this question? Whether or not somebody enjoys something is completely subjective. It's up to one's personal opinion. Just because you don't enjoy it doesn't mean that other people can't enjoy it or don't enjoy horror movies. It's an absolutely pointless question to ask, because you'll never get an actual answer. There's no answer to this question. If you do get an answer, it's going to be different for every person. So there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to why people enjoy horror movies. Same thing, there's no wrong answer to why some women enjoy chick flicks, why some women enjoy watching tearjerkers. But I'm not gonna sit here and ask that question, because it's completely pointless. So anyway, here we start with this article. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna stop every now and then, give my thoughts on some of the words that are said, and then I'll give my overall thoughts on the article when I get done reading it. She starts out like this. For me, having an appreciation for horror movies falls into the category of things I understand exist but reject wholeheartedly, right alongside anime and micropenises. Really. Right from the bat, you have a very condescending tone that completely alienates anyone who decides to read this. Wonderful. When I learn that someone I respect likes the genre, I immediately change the subject. Why? Why? Because you want the discussion to be centered around what you want to be discussed. You feel uncomfortable when people talk about horror movies because you want to be in your safe space. Is that it? I can't fathom why it feels so dirty and uncomfortable to me, akin to hearing the word moist uttered out loud. Again with the word moist. What is up with this shit? I don't know of any women in my life who were triggered by the word moist. What? Does this woman hear the word moist and just like, it was somebody's talking about some delicious moist cake. They're like, oh man, this cake is so delicious and moist, you should try some. Moist! Moist! He said moist! Oh god, he said moist! Triggered! Trigger warning! You said it, god damn it! You're triggering my trigger! You said moist! How dare you! I don't understand this. Is she joking around or is she being serious? It's hard to tell. So, is horror, when people talk about horror movies, is that also a trigger for her? Oh my god, you talked about horror movies! Ah! It's so pathetic. It's ridiculous. This is from somebody who's supposed to be professional. So anyway, she continues here. And with Halloween approaching, my office has become a hotbed of scary movie-related discussion, so much so that I've decided it's finally time to interrogate that queasy feeling I get when the subject turns to horror flicks. Why do so many smart women I know claim to like horror movies? Are they just lying? I'll try to swallow my skepticism as I begin unpacking. There's so many things wrong with that statement. First off, you're assuming that people in your life who are, women in your life who like horror movies are dumb or might be dumb, which is all kinds of bullshit and honestly quite offensive. And that makes you appear to be a giant asshole. If that's how you want to come across, you succeeded right there. You look like the biggest asshole imaginable right there. You look like a total bitch. So, and I don't really have anything wrong with this woman personally. I just hate this article. I hate this article with a passion. It represents everything I hate about journalism today. It's like we just hand somebody the ability to write for publication. It doesn't matter if it's glamour. To me, these people don't deserve they don't deserve to be writing about topics and subjects that they know nothing about. They have no context with. Because it's just pointless bickering. And people might say that about me. I'm being pointless. This video is pointless because I'm bickering about a pointless article. But no, really, these articles should be pointed out more. They should have a spotlight on them to show how bullshit they are. So anyway, all right, getting back to the article. And to start, I know where this all began. I've watched exactly one horror movie in my life, The Ring. You can't, oh my god, you're writing an article about why people like horror movies and you've only seen one fucking horror movie. She saw The Ring, and she says, saw one horror movie in my life, The Ring, when I was 14, and I'm still extremely upset about it. Maybe you should grow a thick skin and not being so upset about a fictional movie. It's fiction. It's not real life. Why do you have a crippling fear and phobia of a movie that is not based on reality in any way, shape, or form? I mean, can you not separate reality from fiction? So, it just gets worse, folks. I mean, I'm just getting started. I'm still extremely upset about it. I saw it with my cousin at her grandmother's house in the middle of the afternoon. Read broad daylight, which is important and recommended. Why did you put that there? That doesn't make any sense. What? It wasn't at night. It wasn't in the dark. So that's why that's something I have to point out to you. You need to understand that it was still scary to me because I saw it during the afternoon and it wasn't dark outside. That doesn't have any bearing on this conversation or this discussion. It doesn't have any bearing, period. What does it even mean? What is the point of pointing that out? There is no point. And one particular scene still maintains a place of prominence in my memory, no matter my consistent attempts to suppress it. When the girl falls in the well and tries to claw her way out. I developed a deep and enduring fingernail ripping off fear specifically from that scene, which haunts me to this day. It's been 14 full years, but I probably think about it 60% of the times I look at fingernails. Note, I'm grimacing acutely while typing this, and now I have to take a break to find candy and talk to someone about something frivolous. Why do you have to put that in there? It's her attempt at being snide or being funny, and it's just a fail. It's an epic fail. There's not. It's an F on the F scale of fuck. It just sucks. What is the point of that? And why are you so fucking scared? Why do you get a crippling fear of a movie, of a scene of a movie? Get over it. I mean, I'm just saying, seriously, get over it. I mean, it's just a movie. I, for one, I still have some fears and phobias associated with films, like the fucking Norse creature from The Thing. Anytime I see a picture of that, it freaks me out, but it doesn't give me a crippling phobia every time I see it or think about it. I don't go through life be like, oh my god, the Norse creature, it's gonna get me. Oh, The Thing. Oh god, I'm so scared. No, I don't do that. I'm messing with my hood right now because I'm just trying to prevent myself from strangling things or just punching my computer screen because this article is full of so much shit. You know, it sucks that it scared you when you were a kid. That sucks. But, you're an adult now. I would think you'd be able to get over that and just realize that horror films aren't your thing. That's fine. They scare you too much. Fine. That's fine. I don't have a problem if you don't like horror movies. I don't have a problem if you don't want to watch them or give them a shot because they scare you too much. That's fine. That's your opinion. That's your choice. I have a problem with you shitting on horror movies, which she does later in this article, based off of your experience with watching one movie. So then she then flashes forward a little bit, for a few years ahead into modern times, not when she was 14. And she says, then earlier this year, my boyfriend's well-intentioned but ultimately misguided urging, I decided to give the scary entertainment world another chance. In serious spite of my misgivings, I attempted to watch American Horror Story, which is a show I admit I haven't been able to see yet. I just haven't really, it didn't really interest me that much, so I haven't really got to watching it. It might be really good, but I've just had so many other things I've wanted to watch more than American Horror Story. He wasn't the first trusted source I've heard rave about the show. Parentheses, again, she's done this like 3 different times already. See above, office full of people who love this stuff. What is wrong with you? Why do you have to keep pointing out your fellow office workers? And that like it's some kind of bad thing that they like talking about horror movies during October. And he was reassuring. It's not really that scary, my boyfriend said. It's so good, he said. Then here's her rebuttal to that. In caps, of course. No, it was the worst. Never again. Never really poor attempt at being funny. So yes, admittedly, my threshold for things that are not that scary might be lower than that of some other people. Obviously it is, because you can't handle The Ring. You can't handle anything. You can't handle horror films. It's just the truth. You can't handle really scary horror movies. God forbid you go and watch something like The Evil Dead. You'd probably not get out of your room or your house for weeks. I mean, this person, is there something wrong? I'm just honestly asking, is there something wrong with this woman? I mean, I'm being honest. I mean, does she have some psychological issues? Does she have some deep-rooted some kind of thing going on where she just cannot handle this type of experience. Um, I'm just honestly asking a question because it sounds like she might need help because she's getting a crippling phobia of like one scene from one horror movie. So also, she's basing this off of watching. If you can't handle this type of horror film like The Ring, then you probably would not be able to handle American Horror Story. So why aren't you trying to watch a type of horror movie that is more suitable for you, like a horror comedy? Why don't you go watch Beetlejuice? Why don't you go watch Tucker and Dale versus Evil? I mean, my parents aren't fans of horror films, but they really enjoyed that movie. Go watch the Monster Squad. I mean, or maybe the Blob remake. Maybe not. I mean, that might be too scary for her. But seriously, or Ghostbusters. That's technically it has horror elements. Go watch Ghostbusters if you haven't already, or maybe Arachnophobia. I mean, there's plenty of movies out there that aren't just straight up horror films. That's why I love the genre because there's more than just with drama. It's just drama. There really isn't much. There might be historical drama or biographical drama, but really it's all pretty much the same. Sci-fi has a little bit of variations, but not much. Mostly science fiction is just science fiction. Fantasy is mostly just fantasy. And you can have sci-fi fantasy, and you can have sci-fi horror, but you can have horror comedy. See, that's the thing. Like in comedies, they're usually pretty much the same as well. So, but horror, you can combine all different genres with it. It's like a lot like sci-fi or a lot like action because you can have it. But action films, you can have an action comedy, you can have just a straight up action movie. Well, with horror, you could combine all of these other genres, and you could do that probably with action or sci-fi or fantasy, and maybe with drama with a little bit. But really, I mean, I think she's selling horror short by just obsessing on films like The Ring or American Horror Story. Check out something like My Boyfriend's Back. That's a horror comedy. You might enjoy that because it's technically it's a rom-com, and I enjoy it. I think it's a fun movie. So, you maybe are just watching the wrong horror movies. Ever think about that? So, no, because she just can't really fathom that for some reason, because now she's making it personal. But I maintain that there's absolutely no value in feeling scared. No value in feeling scared. Uh, I disagree with that because with the, with the experience of seeing multiple horror films that I've seen over the few years, over a while, and over probably about the last 10 years or so. I know I'm young. I'm working on it. I'm trying to watch more horror films. I wasn't really able to watch horror films until later in my life because my parents wouldn't allow me to. So it wasn't until I was in my teens or late teens when I was able to watch horror movies. I'd seen a few of them when I was younger, but I wasn't really able to branch out and really go in and watch any horror movie that I wanted until later in my teenage years. So, and because of horror films, I don't know, maybe I've just been able to it's built up this sort of ability for me to be able to handle situations in my life that might be similar to situations that happen in horror films, and I'm able to handle them in a very productive and effective way. That it enables me to kind of survive these situations better than I might have been able to if I hadn't had experience watching these horror movies, going through these intense situations and coming out of them okay, mentally as well as emotionally. And like there are situations in your life that are gonna be like a horror movie. And if you don't really experience that or you don't put yourself in those situations, then you're not really going to know how to handle them. And that's how I kind of approach watching horror movies. I mean, sometimes it's a very cathartic experience. You can go through hell, but then if you survive the film along with the character that you enjoy and you've connected with, then it's a very cathartic and wonderful experience. It's one of a kind. And I think, yeah, there are some positives when it comes to watching horror movies because you're not looking for them doesn't mean there aren't any of them. And that's the thing. I mean, she just thinks there's no positives whatsoever and just makes that assumption without really going in depth or asking people or trying to figure out why people like horror movies. She just goes in and just goes, "Why do people like horror movies? I don't understand it. This is just dumb and, people there's no reason for it," and doesn't really go into any sort of research or in depth on anything because she's a terrible writer. I mean, obviously, maybe she's just a terrible writer for this article. Maybe she's not a terrible writer as a whole. Maybe she's just a terrible writer for this article, which is what infuriates me. I mean, you have people like myself who, if I tried to get a job writing articles about movies or whatever, I'm probably would not be getting that job right now. But there's people who clearly have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, who have gotten this opportunity to get paid for their work or at least get their words out there. And someone like myself uh, just is not able to do that because, well, they don't fit the right criteria or they don't know the right people. And that's what's so infuriating to me. It's because I see this all the time on these movie websites or these other websites that are based on magazines, and they have people who they hire to talk about movies or whatever, and these are people that do not have a fucking clue. I mean, there are some people who do, but it seems like they're in the minority. So anyway, all right, let's go back to this article, shall we? Let's go back to the well of bullshit. And she says, I maintain that there's absolutely no value in feeling scared. Why do people want to be scared? What is good about that? Feeling scared is always, always a negative experience. And I don't think it's even the kind with a silver lining. You're terrified, extremely stressed out, and probably sweating. Hopefully you have a blanket or some other object to clutch and or cover your eyes with. You remind yourself it's only on your TV and you can turn it off at any time, but then you're still sweaty and your favorite blanket is ripped and you have to turn on all the lights and reflect on it all a few days out until after you calm down. I see no upside here. You're talking about your single experience watching horror movies. There's no subjectivity here. It's all just one person's single experience with horror movies that she's projecting towards everyone. I mean, what? So it's always a negative experience. To you, it is always a negative experience. And you can't find a silver lining. You're the one that's terrified and extremely stressed out and probably sweating. And there might be other people who do feel the same way that you do when they watch horror films. I'm not one of them. A lot of my friends aren't one of them. And to speak specifically, not all women are like this either, because I have multiple good friends of mine who are women and they really enjoy horror movies, and it's not a negative experience to them, and it's not something that makes them terrified, extremely stressed out, or sweat. It doesn't make them sweat themselves or doesn't make them freak out. They don't need a blanket. They don't need a blankie. They don't need a blankie so they can, feel safe. They don't need that. Everyone is different. That's the thing. I don't go in and project my overall feelings on rom-coms, which are one of my least favorite genres of film, and say that I don't know why people enjoy romantic comedies. I don't know why these women can enjoy watching these tearjerkers that make them feel sad. See, that's the thing too. I could easily ask that. Why do you want to watch these movies that make you feel like your heart got ripped out, like Terms of Endearment or something? Why do you want to watch those movies? Why does anyone want to feel sad? But I don't, because that's pointless and that's stupid and that's a dumb question to ask. Because you'll never get an answer to it. You'll just get an opinion. And that's all it is. It's an opinion. And there's no such thing as a wrong opinion. And there's really no right or wrong opinion. So Ted, yeah, she can feel this way, but she's projecting and she's doing it in a way that just is so condescending and pretentious. She's writing this, it feels like, with a giant stick up her ass. So here she goes again. So what are horror genre enthusiasts getting out of this experience that I'm not understanding? first off, like I said, a cathartic experience because you've survived the terror along with some of these characters that you've related to, and you're able to uh, enjoy the experience with. You also get these some sort of endorphins that you can kind of get after watching a horror movie, which is similar to the sort of things that you might get when you get on a roller coaster. Um, it's one of those things that I and it's a very unique experience, especially if it's a good horror movie, because it'll stay with you, it lasts with you, it's something that you can think about later, and it sends a chill down your spine. And another thing, there's sometimes especially with a film that has a lot of visual and practical effects, it's really nice to see that. It's really nice to see the visual and practical effects, especially makeup effects, because some of the best examples of great makeup effects are in horror movies. And I personally think, makeup artists like Tom Savini and Stan Winston and Rob Bottin and Craig Nicotero, these are all and Chris Walas are all people who are artists. Well, the gore that they create, the gory situations that they create in their horror films are works of art. And I think they're underappreciated. And I think you can enjoy a horror film sometimes just for that, just for the creativity of these artists. So then she continues to be condescending, which really irritates me. Did their mothers yell boo after comforting them when they skinned their knee as a child, so their minds are forever mapped to conflate comfort and sheer terror? That's a wild assumption, a wild guess that it just doesn't make any sense. That you literally pulled that out of your ass and put it on the page. Do they suffer from chronic hiccups and horror movies are the only respite? Um, I speak for myself here, but not only I get really bad hiccups, and sometimes scaring me doesn't get rid of them. I need to go and get some peanut butter because that's the only thing that's going to get rid of those hiccups. So, I don't know what you're talking about here. And what do hiccups have to do with horror movies? Oh, because you associate your enjoyment of horror films with being scared to get rid of your hiccups. No, I don't. I don't know anyone that does. And I don't know anyone who has parents that are as much of that are so horrible that they psychologically fuck with their kids' heads when they skin their knee. I mean, what the hell? And first off, how does that even end up being any sort of comfort? If you skin your knee and your mom goes, boo, that isn't going to make you feel good. That's going to make you feel terrible. It's not going to do anything. So, except really confuse that kid. Is the state of being so terrified you might shit yourself, and then as a result being terrified that you actually going to shit yourself, which absolutely would be a terrifying ordeal in itself, actually also a thrilling experience? I really wouldn't know. Apparently not, because you haven't really given more than one horror film a chance to begin with. You haven't bothered to watch something like Poltergeist or The Evil Dead or Dawn of the Dead or Creepshow or really broaden your horizons in any way whatsoever. So there's really no way that you could really know this to begin with. So I don't know why you're asking this in the first place, because you obviously don't know. And you obviously don't want to know either. And what is that feeling like you're gonna shit yourself have to do with watching a horror movie? I have never once, while I'm watching a horror film, no matter how tense and suspenseful and scary it could possibly be, I have never once felt like I'm gonna shit my pants. This article makes me want to shit myself because of how full of shit it is. So it's full of so much shit that I can smell it through the screen. But no, I've never once watched a horror movie and felt like I'm gonna shit my pants. She then goes in and consults Google. I Googled, and it turns out fear and anxiety release endorphins, which trigger a positive feeling in the body similar to that of morphine, like I said earlier. What? If this were true, it is true. There's no if. It is true. It's scientific fact. And therefore, the answer to this whole mess, wouldn't my body feel positive too, instead of sweaty and blanket rippy? Maybe you have an endorphin problem. Maybe your body doesn't create these endorphins the same way. Or maybe there is a difference between men and women and their brains and how they react to certain situations in certain films, particularly horror films. I don't know. There might be something like that. It might not just be you. It might be your body just is incapable of creating these type of endorphins when you watch these movies. Also, you've only watched one. So you can't really say that your body doesn't create this sort of endorphin. It might. You might have felt better after you've freaked yourself out and had a panic attack. Then you felt better. But because you're choosing to take this really absurd and completely biased side, you are not going to even remotely think that that could be a possibility. I can wrap my head around this whole thrills minus actual danger appeal, but can't you just get your rocks off by watching Homeland or something else written by writers whose artistic vision extends beyond scenes cast exclusively in blue-gray light, with recently widowed women being terrorized by things and beings that hopefully don't exist IRL? That's the one sentence that fucking pissed me off, that made me fucking livid. This woman has the gall to completely discredit and destroy and shit on and denigrate an entire genre of film of which she's only seen one fucking movie. And she's going to make a wild assumption and a mass generalization that every horror film is not well written, that it doesn't have artistic vision, because it's just blue-gray light with recently widowed women. Which I'm like, widowed women? What are you talking about? If you've only seen The Ring, why are you talking about widowed women like something like a slasher movie? But apparently, maybe she saw Scream because she has a gift from Scream with Drew Barrymore in this article. Regardless, even if you did see Scream or saw part of Scream, that doesn't mean that you have the right to absolutely discredit and shit upon an entire genre because you don't like it. It makes you feel bad. You have no context whatsoever, so you have no idea what the fuck you are talking about. Artistic Homeland. Homeland's a thriller with mostly drama elements. I've seen a couple episodes, not my cup of tea. Fine with me if you enjoy it, but Homeland is not really that thrilling. I don't know what's so thrilling about that show. Is there a lot of action in that show? There's a lot of mental intrigue, and there's it's like I don't understand that analogy. It's like if somebody said, "Oh, CS, you could just watch CSI for your thrills." CSI? Get your rocks off the CSI. I don't know of anybody who can call CSI or NCIS thrilling. Entertaining, maybe. But thrilling? I don't know. I mean, if you do find it thrilling, to each their own. But really, the main thing, it's not that's not the one thing that just pissed me off so much. It's saying that the writing in all horror films is shit. Have you seen something called The Changeling with George C. Scott? That is a great mystery and also a great horror film. There's a lot of horror films out there that have a lot of great subtext and a lot of really interesting things to say about society. A film like Jacob's Ladder, that's a really deep movie. That's a horror film. Very well written. You can't make an assumption on an entire genre based on one or two movies that you've seen and you didn't like. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna base I'm not gonna base my opinion. I'm not gonna go in and because I've seen a bunch of rom-coms that I didn't care for, I'm not gonna go and say, oh, all those movies suck. That entire genre is terrible because I don't like those few movies that I've seen. Because I can't actually say that because I haven't seen enough to actually make that decision or have an opinion on it. At least on the genre as a whole. So, and then the artistic vision thing. Have you seen Dario Argento? Have you seen films by Argento or Lucio Fulci or John Carpenter? I mean, there's a lot of horror films that have a lot of great artistic vision in them. They're not just blue-gray light. Some of them are visually stunning, and some of the most visually stunning examples that I have seen in film. Take Bram Stoker's Dracula, for instance. That movie is a work of art. There is just some unbelievably jaw-droppingly beautiful sequences in that movie. And you could take a picture of many scenes from that film and you could put them on the wall in an art gallery and people would appreciate them as works of art. And then, of course, the whole thing IRL. Like, really? You must be some kind of millennial because you're putting in a text abbreviation in an article that everyone can read on the internet, that everyone can see. Yeah, that makes you look very professional, now does it? And then these are our last few words. Does all this say more about me than it does about them? Do I insist to my own detriment on living unchallenged in a comfortable space that's never threatened by demon children who spent time in wells? Does detesting horror movies make me narrow-minded? I mean, perhaps, but I feel fine about it. You shouldn't feel fine about it. No one should feel fine about being narrow-minded, about being so close-minded about this particular genre of film. I mean, really, especially if you call yourself an entertainment or movie writer. I mean, for fuck's sake. I mean, like I said, broaden your horizons. Just go watch something. If you don't like horror films like The Ring, then don't watch horror movies like The Ring. Watch different horror movies. Go watch some of the Universal monster horror films from the 30s and the 40s. Go watch The Wolfman, The Invisible Man, Frankenstein, Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Start off with those or something, and maybe move up to something like Creepshow, which is tongue in cheek. It doesn't take itself too seriously. I mean, really, this is such an infuriating article. It really is. You should never feel fine about being narrow-minded. That tells me that shows me a lot about you. A lot. A lot about you, Abigail. I'm completely exhausted now. Sorry, horror film enthusiasts, but I'm no closer to understanding you. I'm no closer to understanding you either. You operate like some kind of alien from outer space who saw a couple horror movies, made some mass generalization about them, and decided they're all bad because they made me feel bad, but never really gave them a chance to begin with. Call me if you want to see something a little more positive at the box office. Okay, you want to talk about positive experiences in the movie theater? Positive experiences in the theater? The most positive experiences I can think of watching a film in the theater have been watching horror movies. For example, when I saw The Monster Squad in 35mm at the Hollywood Theater in Portland, Oregon, with director Fred Decker in attendance, a packed crowd full of fans of the movie, like myself, and people who haven't seen the film, and it was a really wonderful, unique, one-of-a-kind experience. When I saw David Cronenberg's The Fly in 35mm at the same theater with Chris Walas, the guy who created the Brundlefly effects, sitting in the same row as me, that was a magical, wonderful, very positive experience. So, just because you don't have a positive experience watching horror movies in the theater doesn't mean that everyone doesn't have a positive experience watching horror movies in the theater. Because that's complete bullshit. Just like this entire article, which is complete bullshit. I can't think of one point that this woman made that was at all that I really agreed with, or I thought was even remotely based on reality. It's completely based on her own fantastical fantasy world ideal of how things are in this world. It's just not everybody is as stuck up as you, lady. Not everybody has a stick up their ass about horror movies. Get over it. You don't like horror movies. Boo-hoo, cry me a fucking river. No need to write a fucking article about it that makes no sense and is full of mass generalizations, assumptions, and has literally no basis on fact whatsoever. Anyway, thank you for watching this BS Zone. I know it's been long, but I had to re-record this because the first take I did, it it didn't work because the audio is off. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video regardless. And as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.